So, some of you have actually been to my shop before, some of you haven't. So what I thought I would do is I would show you where you'll come in. So there is a big door out here, and hopefully you'll have better weather when you come, but likely you wouldn't. This is the little emporium here. This is where we live. And where it says offices, 12 to 39, that is where you're going to come in. You're going to use the little arrows up in here, little arrows up and down till you find number 20. You ring the bell and then you'll be here and you'll come in over here. So many of you haven't seen the new studio. This used to be my door, that used to be my studio, but now we are missing that. So that has gone to the corridor to nowhere. We're not quite sure what that is, but there we go. It is what it is. And then this is the shop. And there we go. So anybody who's been here before, you will know this is a lot tidier than it used to be. First things first though, when you come into the shop, I always have to take my shoes off and put the slippers on because you've got to be comfy. You've got to be comfy. So this back wall now is all fabric. That is the solid wall at the top there. I've got the big giant wadding over there. No doubt I'll fill those there with crap that I don't need. And over there we've got the solids and we've got all the fabric. Now over here, it does look a bit messy at the moment because we've been sorting remnants out. So this is our remnant box. This is quilting. So we're in the process of getting better, but look at this. Oh, if I could bundle, if I could bundle. But what's great is we've now got a shelf for all the books, all the patterns, all the rulers, got the creative grids down there, your rotary cutter blades, more patterns. And then over here, we've got more bits and bobs over there. And then that's the quilt pile waiting. That's the next one to go on the frame. There's Matilda. We're trying not to sulk with Matilda at the moment, because she's lovely and I love her, but I want to kill her sometimes. And she's the inanimate object before anybody makes rude comments. Carolyn, no, sadly, we still don't have the long arm sorted, but we're getting there slowly. This is now all the different fabrics that have come in. This is the Halloween, and we've got the Watcher here by Libs Elliott. We've got all of her beautiful phosphor fabric over here. Then we've got some Christmas. Quite a lot of Christmas. And then we have the Armistice Poppy fabric over here, which, oh my goodness, I think they're so beautiful. And I think I've just realised I think I forgot to take them off the sale. So if anybody wants a sale, go and have a look. We've got the Round the World kit over there, Elements over there. We've got the Novelty Bees. We've got some Spray Time, the Hungry Caterpillar collection over there. This collection is sublime. And then we've got this fabulous Tranquility. I just love those little Japanese there. And then I was lucky enough to get some Island Batiks in. And I haven't got a huge amount of Adita Sitar, but we've got some Adita Sitar there. And I think that's also Adita. And then we've got the Beguiled and Art Theory here by Libs Elliott and Alison Glass. And I know you're probably all bored, and I'm sorry. That's the Almost Blue collection there. Oh my goodness, the best fabric I have ever bought. Almost Blue by Libs Elliott. Oh my God, divine. So it's absolutely, you can just see it's got this sort of denim-y look to it, but it's the softest, smoothest, most beautiful fabric I've ever had. Anyway, so the reason I'm doing this is because normally live feeds, people take a little while to get into them. So I thought I would just show you around the shop because we haven't done it. I'm trying not to be bouncy, sorry. And then this is all the brand new fabrics that have come in that I haven't got spaces for. These are the fat quarter bundles that still need to be folded. That's a quilt that was meant to be picked up, but we can't get it done now. These are all the other bits and bobs. We've got our nice little coffee station there, which is paradise. And when we're having very bad days, obviously quite a large bar over there. This was all started for Lady Josephine. So, yeah. Hello, so lovely by sisters. What does that say? Oh, sorry, no, cancel. What have I done? Right. I want to see the chat. There we go. I'm currently in love with Beth Studley at the moment. Got some, they're so gorgeous. I love her. Right. So we are here to do the preparation for these. So this is the quilt that caused me to have a little breakdown. And we're getting there. The quilting, I did manage to fix everything in the end, but it just took hours and hours and hours of burying threads. But it's very pretty. Now, in the kit that you're going to get from Natasha, you've actually got enough fabric to do this as your binding, or you can just use the solid that's in there. There's enough in there for the solid, so you can do both. But I'm very pleased with this. It's worked really, really well. But I won't deny, I know the batiks aren't on the website at the minute. We've just got to double check stock. But look how beautiful these look. I'm just in love, in love, in love, in love, in love. And the other thing is that you can obviously in the pattern, you can change the way this looks by doing your colours in a different way. So this is the Aboriginal dot or Aboriginal ovals, which, oh, just gorgeous. It gives you such a different look to the batik. It's so different. We thought the dark grey, there we go. So it's just, oh, Nettie, sorry, Nettie, I don't know what happened there. And then I thought I would just dot, because it's got the dots in it, I thought just a plain simple dimples on the back would be good. And again, you've got enough in the binding that you can either do it as the grey binding here, you've got 1/2 metre extra of this, or you've got enough to be able to just do that to do your binding. So those are 2 of the colourways. Sorry, I never know when I'm walking around what's easier, not to make people feel ill. Sorry. So then the third colourway is the guinea fowl. It's going to be this. Oh, just glorious, glorious, glorious. And then we thought the cloud as a light blue background would work really, really well. And so far, I think it does. So the reason I'm doing today was I had some people ask the question of how do you actually prepare for shows like Natasha and stuff? That's a very odd angle. Sorry, I'm not sure I can live with that angle. That's very weird. There we go. So I've had people ask how it is that I get everything prepped for the show. So I thought, you know what? Let's do it. Let's have a little look and I can show you all how it all goes. The first thing is I am not sponsored by Coca-Cola. I'm having a week, so yes, I'm drinking a very high sugar. But if Coca-Cola would like to sponsor me, always open. So what I thought I would show you was how I prep, what I do. It might be boring for some, but it might be lovely for others. And the first thing I'm going to do, and don't tell Andrew, we're going to the ironing board. Don't tell Andrew. I don't want him to know that I can iron. So my little ironing section is a little bit tight. So this is the ironing section over here. That's my sewing machine over there and my little chair. So that's my little ironing area here. And I'm hoping I'll be able to get this in. Yay! So we've got 4 different colours of this guinea fowl. We've got this gorgeous dark blue. And I just love them. I think they're going to be absolutely beautiful. And then obviously you've got your background colour. So I always start with the background colour. And all I'm doing is, when you get it on the bolt, you can see occasionally there's a little fold or there's a little press. So I always try, especially when I'm doing triangles, I try and make sure that I get the fabric pressed before I actually start sewing. It just works a lot easier. It just works a lot easier, I find. And then you get a cleaner cut. And when you're piecing things together, you get a cleaner section. So anybody who is a beginner and is tempted to start quilting, first of all, welcome to the cult. It is a cult. You will be addicted. And you're going to love it. And you're not harming anybody. But I will say be kind to yourself if you're going to start. So first of all, press your fabric down as flat as you can. I always use a steam when I'm pressing my fabric because the steam just helps those threads loosen up a little bit. And you will find that there's always a stubborn section where there's a steam. So that then I've got a little spray thing on my iron. So I just spritz some water on it and just get that little section flat. Now, the one thing I will find when I do that, some fabrics, you'll notice that the area where the water has fallen goes a little bit lighter once you iron it. Don't worry, that's completely normal. It shouldn't discolor. If you are doing a batik, you might want to wash your fabric first, but water's not going to stain or do anything on the fabric unless the color hasn't been fastened correctly on your fabric. If that is the case, then make sure you chuck it in the washing machine with some color catchers first, because the last thing you want is the color running when it is already a quilt. Now, the kits that we're doing on Natasha, you've got 2 meters of your backing fabric. You've got 1/2 meter of all the other colors. So you've got more than enough fabric there to have leftovers. And the 2 meters, as I said, you're going to be able to have enough for your binding in 2 options, and go from there. Otherwise, you just add the little bit left over into your stash. So there we go. I'm now ready with this. Now, the first thing I do is, because I'm going to be doing all my cutting, and because I like phenomenally easier processes, I always try and fold this directly in half. And by doing that, I make sure that this is lined up. So when I'm on the cutting board, I then just trim this line down, and all the cutting that I can do is so much easier because I know that these lines are dead on. I line my little fold line up there perfectly, and it just means that when I come to cut, it's a lot easier for me. Now, these little 1/2 meter pieces, I try and actually press them so that you don't have this fold in the middle. You don't have to, it's entirely up to you. You can always come and repress later, but you can see this one's all folded up when you get it. So you will need to give that a little bit of a press just to make sure that it is nice and flat. And the reason being is, if you have got a fold and you are cutting for a 1/2 square triangle, if you've got a little fold in there, when you come to put the triangle together, one of your fabrics may be a different size. And when it's a different size, that means your triangle, your 1/2 square triangle, will be a little bit wonky. And we want to be able to do as much as possible to make sure that our seams are as flat as possible and our cutting is as accurate as possible too. Oops. Normally, I would be very cheeky and I'd have one of my amazing assistants, Lady Josephine or Mrs. Afterthought, that's Jo Collins or Sylvia, and they would be pressing this for me because, you know, got to wear the old ones out first. I do love them to pieces, and they know that I say that, and they're lovely. You might need to do like I did there, just go over that folded seam in the middle, the little folded line there, just twice, just to make sure that you've got it out. You might not need to. I had a little bit of an accident on Friday, and my iron dropped on the floor. My faithful, you know, the old faithful irons that you have for years and years that you've used. I've had that one for about 4 or 5 years, and it was gorgeous. And I know that when I go over it the first time, ain't no creases after that one. But it fell off my ironing board the other day because I wasn't paying enough attention, and the nose of the iron came loose and shattered. So annoyingly, I'm now not using my favorite iron anymore. And my lovely girls got me an Aliso, and I'm just too scared to open it and put it on the frame. Be my new sewing room at home. If you are commenting, I'm sorry, I'm not ignoring you. I just can't see them while I'm doing this. Whew. I'm going to turn this heater off. I put the little heating on because it was a little bit nippy in my studio, but I feel like that's a little bit of overkill at the moment. So what the plan for this is, I'm going to prepare half of this quilt because the quilt is made in 2 halves. So I'm going to prepare the bottom half of the quilt for the show, and then we'll do the top half on the show tomorrow at 10 o'clock on Natasha Makes. I just thought that way then you can see both of them. It's quite a nice way to give you all a little bit of a surprise as to what's going to happen and where we are, what we're looking at. That's number 3, and 1 more to go. I think this might be my favorite colorway. I love this colorway. I do love the colorway. Now, if you are buying these kits from Natasha, just make sure that if you are always thinking of your backings, because I know many people do different things for their backings, just have a look and see what they've got in stock. Maybe you don't want to do the same colorway for the backing, and maybe you want to do a different color for the backing. So make sure you check Natasha's page out for the different guinea fowl fabrics, Aboriginal fabrics, and batik fabrics for the back. And maybe you want to build your own kit out of her gorgeous fabrics. You're going to need 1/2 meter of each of the colors, and you'll need 2 meters of the background fabric for your solid background. Don't tell Andrew I know how to do this. Okay, I think it's really important that your husband always has a little bit of mystery and he doesn't know everything that you can do in this world. Right, so now I'm going to have to grow an extra arm whilst I carry you very safely and the fabric back to the cutting board over here. Excuse me, sorry, you're a bit bouncy, I apologise. Apologies. Oh, right. Correct my positioning now, sorry. Right, so now I have my colour fabric. I'm going to put them to one side for the minute. And now I've got my background fabric. Now remember when we had this on the ironing board, we lined up the raw edges over here and folded the fabric in half. What I do now is I just shake it out and get that completely square. And what you're looking for is that this line here is the same all the way along. And then what I do is I put this on my cutting board and I'm going to be able to then prepare a line to make sure that that's all lined up. Now, I'm going to try this. I've never used it before for this. I'm going to try it. Not sure if it'll work, so bear with. We're going to give it a go. We shall give it a go. So I need that way. So forgive me while we do experimental camera angle number 1. Is this going to work? Forgive me. Oh, I feel like we're working. Yay! Okay, so first things first, you're going to then have your pattern. And what I suggest everybody does, when you get your pattern, you get to choose your colours. So the way I've chosen my umber, my bright yellow, my orange, and I'm hoping this isn't backwards. If it is, I apologise. What you do then is you just cut off a little section of your fabric and stitch that down the side. So when it says in the pattern, use grey, you know you're using that, or umber, or this. And it just makes life a lot easier. But what I've also done is I put the colour in the pattern here next to this. So once you've sewn all your pieces together, matching it's quite easy because then you can go and you can say, right, that colour over there is going to be that colour and that colour. It just makes your life a lot easier. These are all the leftover bits that I had. So what I did is I just cut those into triangles because I fancied the idea of being able to make something else with the triangles. And these are just the little bits left over. So I always hang on to them and keep them with the pattern. And then what I did over here, so it's exactly the same. All I've done is I've just done, that's my umber, that's my orange, that's my bright yellow, that's my yellow. And the good thing then is when you're building it, you can go and see that those two colours there are in fact those two colours there to be able to then tie this into the pattern. So yeah, that is the nice and simple way. And again, those are all my leftovers for that one. These are all my leftovers for the Aboriginal dot. So those I make sure I keep together and put them somewhere safe to be able to then go down from there. So I'm going to move this down a little bit. So the first thing you can see is this section here is completely straight, completely square, all lined up beautifully. which is great. Now, I'm very lucky. I've got a very wide cutting mat here. This is actually, I think, 90... It's one of the biggest ones you can get. So all I'm doing now is I'm now lining up with one of my lines. I'm lining the fabric fold up with one of the lines, and I'm pulling it along so that I'm on the 0 line over here. And the reason is then your fabric is completely square when you start cutting. So it doesn't matter how big a piece of fabric you're going to use. It doesn't matter how small. That is what I would do. Now, really important announcement. I cut all the time. I do this all the time. Do not cut towards yourself. Don't. You will hurt yourself. This blade is only ever open when the blade is on the mat. I am fastidious with this. One of the ladies in my group, she was at one of my sewing groups, and she had her ruler, she had her finger, and she had her blade. She had her finger over like this. She had her blade, and she cut off the end, and she cut the top of her finger off. I don't want to tell you. Vile, awful. Don't do it. So please, it's only open when it's on the mat and you're cutting. If you are in a group of mine, I will tell you 3 times. On the 3rd time, I fine you £5, and the £5 goes to cancer research. If you do it a 4th time, I have a very large pot and pan and a big metal spoon, and I sit and bang it in your ear the whole time that you're cutting. It's very restful. So what I'm going to cut now is I'm cutting this off, but I'm not going to show you how I do it, because then people might do it themselves, and I don't want people hurting themselves. The more practice you get with cutting, the more safe it is for you to do it. But until you're there, I'm not even showing you how to cut that towards you. Right. Aren't I bossy? Now, what you've got over here as well is you've now got little bits of fabric, and that's going to be your little piece that you're going to stitch onto your pattern, because you were throwing it away anyway. I don't throw my fabric away. I have a little bin on the floor there which goes into charity, and it goes off to Save the Children, and they sell it off in their little scrap bag. So yeah, nobody is at risk there. And also it's not filling up with the environment. One thing also, while you've got your fabric all laying out here, I should have done this just before I cut the first piece. I have quite a big announcement coming this week. But I'm not going to tell you now. That's another announcement. But the one thing I am learning more and more about as I quilt is the thread. Now, I will not deny, like 900 million thousand other people, I have used Coates Moon thread from the first time that I've started. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with it. The only thing is it fluffs like mad. Kills your machine. You've got to have it serviced more and more and more. So what you're saving in thread, you're actually spending more on servicing. You've got to spend a lot more time cleaning your machine, because the fluff that comes off these is insane. Also, you know, anyway, I'm not going into quality and all that, but the fluff on these is a lot. So one thing that I've noticed recently is I'm paying a lot more attention to thread. More news coming soon. But what I've also noticed is when you're doing a quilt like this, trying to find the right thread to be able to use when you sew your fabric together is quite hard. And trying to find the right thread, I've kind of struggled with to think about what would work, because then I think do I use a thread that I'm going to quilt it with? Would that work? Do I use a thread that is got every color in it? Because you can see here there's blue, 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 blue. But then if you use a really dark blue, it then is really, really dark and bright on some colors, where on others it isn't. So when I do this, I always try and lay down a series of threads to see what will work on all of the fabric, not just some of the fabric. Forgive me, we're going to do a little bit of movement again. So what I did here, you can tell, I've put a whole load of threads. So these are the colors that I've used. You know, I've just decided to use a couple of different colors and see what ones would work. And you can see on the blue over here, you can see that one there is really bright. But if we follow the trail of this one, you can see on this thread over here, oh, it blends beautifully. And over here, that blends really well. Over there, that blends really well. But then when you come on here, that's a little bit like, "Whoa," and it's a little bit like, "Whoa," over there. So for me, that's too dark. Now, you might like that. That's absolutely fine. You might like that. Now, also, I love gold. I love quilting in gold. I love it. And you can see here, this gold works really well on there. Where are we? You see, it works quite well on all of the threads. It, it disappears in here. It pops a little bit on there. So, it's just a different way of looking at it and seeing whether that's something that works for you. There we go. Sorry, I'm just noticing messages here. What iron have I got? Nettie, it is a Russell Hobbs Ultra Steam, a Steam Ultra 2600 or 2400. If you are going to get one, I always use the Russell Hobbs ones, but I get the one with the automatic stop. But my Aliso that I got for my birthday, that one's lovely, but it's a lot more expensive. So for me, I love the gold, but I'm not quite sure the gold's the right one because that's quite gold on it. It just pops a lot more. So I'm going to rule the gold one out for me. You might like the gold, use the gold. Now then there was this darker blue. And that darker blue works really well on here. But then when you come onto the pink, it's a bit too for me. It's just a bit too much. It stands out. And the reason is if you press a seam wrong, then, something will just show out. Now the grey, I love grey. I think grey works really well. That's quite a dark grey, so you might want to use a lighter grey. But I always put the thread on the fabric to be able to see what it's going to look like. And over here, for me, the grey was just that little bit too dark. And I know it's light and it's beautiful on here, beautiful on the blue, but for me, that was just a little bit too dark. And can you tell, I've wound it on the bobbin, so there's the clue as to why I did it. Now, it pops on here, which I actually quite like, but on the rest of them, I just think that is so beautiful. So for me, and it is moon thread, I'm using it up while I've still got it, and because my order hasn't arrived yet, I've then decided to use this thread on all of them. Now, I know a lot of people won't do that. If you are going to pay attention to your thread, which most of us don't, that's just something nice to do at the very beginning. It just saves you time all the way through. Right, now to put you back into the frame. Sorry for the bouncy movements. So now what I've done over now is I have cut off the beginning edge. Now, I don't want to be a spoiler alert, but the cutting plan for all of these is exactly the same, bar one cut. The cutting plan on here is really simple. But the great thing is, now what we've done, what we've done is now I've got a nice lined up edge over here. This edge we've now cut nice and flat, and I've lined it up to the 0. It only moved because I was moving fabric on it. And now I'm ready to do my cuts. Now, as pattern writers, I know many of you, sorry, I'm going to get you stationary eventually. I know many of you assume that there is millions of pounds in this. There's not. On a really good day, you'll sell 40. On a really good day, you'll sell 40. And there was 2 days preparing that one and the other one and that, and then all the project. So there's no money in pattern things. So if you could buy and support, really appreciate it. I'm not going to give you the measurements because please buy and support. That'd be lovely. We've all got rent to pay. Right, so on my cutting plan, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 cutting plans to do for the background colour. And the first one I'm going to do is the outer borders. So the outer borders, I need 4 rectangles of a certain length. And having done this once or twice before, I know I'm going to need 5 or 6 pieces. So I am cutting this off now as I go. So there's 1. There's 2. Now, this is something that not a lot of people do, but I do. I think it makes my life a lot easier. Once I've cut that out, I just gently roll this forward. And in order to do that, I just take my ruler and I put the ruler along the selvage edge over there. I make sure that it's all lined up over here and on this side, and then I cut the selvage off at that time there. Now, equally, if we're looking for pieces of fabric to stitch onto your pattern, there you go. You've got a whole load more. If you ever do anything with the selvages, awesome. Do that. Otherwise, make sure you get it to your local charity shop, and your charity shop will be able to then sell it to the ragman. So now what I've done is I've obviously got my pattern there, and I've cut that, so I cross off that section ready to be cut. Right. Now I know that I've got my cornerstone. So this is my outer border on the quilt. Now on that outer border for the cornerstones there, I need to cut 4 triangles. So I don't need both sections here. I just need one. And I'm going to now cut off a strip. It's just easier for me to cut a strip off. You might want to just cut off a section. You do whatever works for you. For me, I prefer cutting a strip off. And then once I've done that, I fold this back. Move my ruler down, and I cut the selvage off as well. I like cutting the selvage off as I go. It just makes my life a little bit easier because then I don't forget about it, and it's just easier for me. Then what I do is I line this up, and when I'm lining up, I line on my ruler there, I line on my ruler there, and I line on my ruler there. Because if I do those 3 sides, when I make the cut here, it'll be completely square because these 3 sides were organized by the ruler. So those are ready to go. I know these need to be triangles. So I now cut those. And I've got my 4 triangles for my cornerstones. So there we go. That's the second section of the pattern cut. Now I need to cut 16 squares measuring the same amount. And then I cut another 16 squares measuring the same amount. So I've got to cut 32 squares now. Now this size is bigger than 6 inches. That's all I'm going to say. It's bigger than 6 inches. So I need to use 2 rulers. Now, because I've been moving my fabric around, I'm going to line this back up here. And sometimes when you do realign these, your fabrics will misalign. So what actually I find easier is you get those lined up like we did the first time round. And all I do now is I line that up at 0, line it up with a fabric line over here, with a marking on the board here. And you know what? Having done that, it's lined up again perfectly. So there we go. So now whenever I'm needing to use 2 rulers to make a cut, I always use two, when I use the 2 rulers. And the marking that you need over here, you mark up on the edge. And I always use the little one on the edge. And then I'm ready to cut here. Okay. Now, I did remember this, but now I've forgotten it. And I've moved my calculator. So I'm just double checking how many of these we need. So you're going to need 7 of each length. So over here I've got 2. Four. Hang on a second, I just want to double check this. Oh my goodness. You only need, sorry, scrap that. That's why we triple check. So those are the cuttings that I need there. And then for the ones on here, let me just double check this. Sorry, I'm having a moment. Again, cut that sashing off, the selvage off at the beginning. Now, again, I don't like you cutting towards yourself. I don't like you cutting at a cock-handed angle. So make sure you move everything so that it's easy for you to cut and safe for you to cut. And I just realized I've turned these the wrong way around. And whatever that way is for you, do it for you. But I will say your mat is your friend. You've got all these lines for a reason use those lines to line everything up. It would just make your life that little bit easier. Right, so at the moment I have got 4, 8. So I'm cutting 8 blocks in one go now. So 8, 16. I was silly. That's going to be scrap. Silly. Didn't pay attention. Wasn't paying attention. So there we go. Those are your 16 squares that you need. Okay? 16 squares. That is now your first cut there, cutting plan A. And then the last one we're going to cut here. Line that back up. Again, check that everything's on 0 there. Check that everything's on 0 there. Put your ruler on. Get your additional measurement over here. Now, if you're doing your binding, I would have cut your binding at this point. I would have cut your binding before this point. And you wouldn't have made a mistake like I did. But if you're not doing binding, I would then just cut out as many of this as you can. If you're not doing the binding out of this background stuff. But you will have lots of squares left over already. But if, like me, you just want leftover bits, then now's the time to cut this last one out. Now, you will find that because there was a fold in it, it'll be a little bit wonky. And by that, you will see the back piece over here is further out than the top piece. That's because there was a fold in the fabric here. So all I do is I line this up, if possible, identically on this line here. If not, I will cut a fresh flat line. And the reality is I think I am going to have to cut a fresh line, which I'm going to do there. And I'm only taking a hair of it off. And then I just cut out my next section there. Now this is if you are not using this for your binding. If you are using it for your binding, cut your binding first. And now I want to cut off my selvages. So I line that all up perfectly. And again, I use my ruler, I line up there, I line up there, and I'm going to cut off what I don't need. Right. And then this is going to my little scrap pile that I won't need over there. Now I rotate again just to make it safer and easier for me to cut. Because for me, I prefer having my ruler on the left and cutting on the right. That's what works for me. Doesn't work for everybody, so do what works best for you. So you can tell this is a perfect straight line. And we're ready to go. So we put the ruler on there. And now I've cut 10 because it's 8, 8, and 2. And then I line up again and I'm going to cut another 10. And then the last one, I'm going to get another one out. So I'm going to get 30 squares out of these 3 cuts. You might not want to do that many, so that's where you'd make the decision for yourself. Now, I am going to show you a trick, or my trick, of how I cut. So all my fabric's cut, it's ready to go, and now I've got to cut half square triangles. Now this is just the way I do it. It isn't right, it isn't wrong, it's just the way I do it. So I leave everything in place. I line my ruler up to the corners of each square, but I don't go exactly on the corner of each square. I go a hair's breadth to the left so that when I'm cutting, the blade actually goes directly through that corner. But in order to do that, your ruler needs to be a hair's breadth on the left-hand side in order for your blade to then go through the corner point of each section. Now this last bit is a bit tough because my ruler's not quite long enough. So I line these up and I get to this point here. And you can tell now, I'm very versed with using my rotary cutter, so I'm nice and slow. And I get to that point and I take my blade away. And then all I do is I line my ruler up with the corner over there. I'm not moving anything. I haven't moved a single thing. Line that up there. And cut through the last section there. And then this one's nice and easy again. You just line your corners up. Now, I will say, the first few times I did this, I destroyed meters and meters of fabric because I was ever so slightly out. So what I would say is that if you are going to do this method, you will need to square this up to the size of the squares in your pattern. The clue is in the pattern cutting. They're all the same size. So now I've got 60 half square triangles of my background fabric. I don't need anywhere near as much as that. I'm going to have 28 left over, and I'm okay with that. So, got your squares, got your half square triangles, you've got your cornerstone, you've got your outer border fabric, and you've got your cornerstone fabric there. That is all of your border fabric cut out. And we are on 41 minutes. I must hurry up. I'm chatting too much. Then I have got my coordinating backing fabrics here. So this is your call. I am very, very comfortable cutting 8 layers of fabric. I have got a brand new blade in my rotary cutter. You deserve a new blade. Put it in your machine, in your cutting machine. Trust me, you will be grateful. That was a really weird angle to get to. I'm glad I don't do that often. So because I know I'm going to be cutting my selvage edge off first, I'm going to put that, no, I'm not, I'm going to do it this way, never mind. I'm putting my selvage edge up at the top. I am lining up to the edge of a fabric piece over here. So you can see there is a theme in everything I do. I'm lining up over here on the fold. I get my second fabric. I line this up. I line that up. I do exactly the same thing. I line my fabric over there. I line it up over here. And I get my fold right as well. As you do it, you'll find things will move around. The ones that are going to be the obvious ones that are straight are this one and this one. So if this is a little bit out, that's fine. Push the excess over there so that when you cut along this line over here, you've got a dead end for everything. So if your piece has been cut ever so slightly crooked, that's absolutely fine. Just make sure you put a little bit over there so that you've got a dead straight center to start with. Sorry, I'm focusing on doing this. I've gone all quiet because I want to make sure I get it straight and flat. This is why pressing your fabric also makes your life a lot easier, because when you put the fabric on the bolts, ever so slightly, you will find it's never exactly half when you put it on the bolt. Never is. Right. Now, if you collect selvages like I do, the Cafe ones are divine. I love them, I love them, I love them. I've got a whole bag of selvages under the counter here. So when I do cut my Cafe selvages off, I always give myself a tiny little bit of extra space to be able to have the selvage with a little bit of the fabric on as well. So you can see that that's got quite a nice little section on it there. And I'm cutting my selvages off first because I just love my Cafe selvages. So for me, that's what I need and want. You don't need to do that. For me, I just sit and stroke them. It's my pretties. Right, so first things first. Now remember, I'm turning you away so that you can't see how I do this, because I don't promote this at all. I'm cutting towards myself. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut my binding, because I know I want my binding to come out of this. Okay. So now I have got a nice dead straight edge there. So I know that my binding, I'm going to need 2.5 inches of all of these. So there is my binding. However, I am going to need another 2.5 inch width piece. It won't be the full width of fabric, but I'll cut that once I've cut everything else. So the next thing I'm doing is I've got to cut 16 squares that are big enough per the pattern. 16 squares to match the fabric that I cut earlier. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to line that up. Okay, so I know that's going to give me, I know I need to do 2 runs of it, and that will give me more than enough squares to be able to do it. Okay, now, this last little section here, I'm gently pulling over. Now, personally, I'm going to do my extra, well, you first got to now pick your colors. Okay, so this is now where you've got to pick your colors. So for me, the way I'm going to do my colors on this, and the reason this is all of exactly the same up to this point. This dark one is going to be what I call umber. So that's the darkest color in the collection. And then this one, I'm going to call orange because that's the second darkest in the collection. And then this one, I'm going to call yellow. And then this one, I'm going to call bright yellow. Now, I hope one of you has paid attention because I will forget, but that's what I've done. So the cornerstones that I'm making over here, I'm using yellow and bright yellow. So I know that the colors that I've chosen to be my yellow, that's my yellow, and that's my bright yellow. So I know that the 2 little squares, the 2 triangles that I've got to cut are out of those 2 fabrics. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull those 2 fabrics out now, and I'm going to get those ready to go. And also I know that my extra binding strip, I'm going to cut out of this fabric. So I'm going to cut my extra binding piece out of that. I know this seems convoluted, but I know what I'm doing, and hopefully when you see what I do, you will see that too. Right, so my 5 binding strips, because you need 5 binding strips to be able to do that. These are them. They are ready to go. That's my 5 binding strips. And then the 2 colors that I need to cut the extra squares with are here. Sorry. Now, you don't have to do this. What you may find is that you don't want to cut this extra strip. You will have extra squares over here. So you don't have to use the fabric over here to cut your squares. You can use them much later on out of something else. But that is then the fabric I've got left over out of all of that. That's what I've got left over. The binding has come out of this fabric, which I'm very pleased about, because I just think it adds that little bit of a pop. That does mean then you've got a whole load of your grey fabric or your background fabric or your cloud fabric left over. But you can see that's a really nice way of doing it. But it's just nice to have that little bit left over to be able to use at a later date. So first things first, I'm going to cut my larger triangles, my squares out that I need. Now remember, these are in the pattern. You will get the sizes in the pattern. And they're $7.99 for the pattern on Natasha's website. If you just go on to natashamakes.com and you Google my name, you'll see all the patterns that Natasha is very kindly selling on my behalf. And this pattern, whether it be posted or digital, is $7.99. Obviously, if it's posted, I don't actually know what the postage price is after that. So just check out the website and you'll be able to see that. But you can download this pattern virtually immediately, as I recall. So there we go. We have now cut out the 2 little triangles. that you need for your cornerstone blocks. Okay, that's your yellow and that's your bright yellow. So those two are going to make a triangle and they're going to go onto that. So those and these strips, that's our outer border fabric, that's ready to go. And these are now ready to cut into the triangle pieces. Remember, you've got all 8 fabrics here together. Sorry, all 4 fabrics here together. You've got 8 layers in each one. And this is very important that you make sure that you line these up absolutely perfectly, because you want to make sure that it is all nice and square. Nothing worse than having wonky triangles. And there's number 1. And there's number 2. So that's enough for the pattern. That's all you need for the pattern. So you've got all these left over. So where I was fiddling around earlier, cutting up that little piece of fabric, you don't need to do that. You can do it out of the excess fabric you've got here. I'm just trying to use as much of this as possible to create as many triangles as possible. And there's no guarantee I'm going to get them all. But luckily I did. Now remember I said to you, you're going to have leftover fabric that you need to put together for the pattern. So these, I would take the biggest, widest pieces of fabric you've got left over here. And 1, 2, 3, which one's missing? 4. Put those ready together to stitch onto the front page of your pattern along here. Right, so now all I have to do is cut these corner to corner. Remember, you're not going exactly corner to corner, you're going a hair's breadth away. I could see one of my customers and clients, bless her, Jill Ed, she just saw that my blade was open and she was banging a pot all the way along. I could hear it all the way from here. She was saying, close your blade. It's needed. I like it. And there we go. That's all ready to go as well. And then last but not least, you've got this last section over here to do. Right. You're fully cut out now. So now it just takes time to organize these. It doesn't take a long time. You've got 2 there, 2 there, 2 there, 2 there, 2 there, 2 there, 2 there. Aren't you? Whoops. Right, so this is going to be called, are you ready for me? Bright yellow. This is bright yellow. Next is this one, which is going to be my yellow. So there are 3 ways of doing this. It's entirely up to you how you do it. You can pull them out one at a time. You can pick the bundles up one at a time and then just put them 2 by 2. There is no right answer. All you need to do is to put all your triangles in one big pile of all the different colors. So how you do that. Now, don't do that. Don't pull them, don't stretch them. Be very, very gentle with them. Most of these triangles are now on the bias, on the edge. And the last thing you want is to stretch your triangles, having gone so carefully to make sure that you're cutting everything so, so carefully. And the great thing is once these are ready to go, you get them all in a pile. It just makes your life that little bit easier when you come to putting them all together. Now, you don't have to put all of these together now, because remember, you only need 16 of them. So you don't need to have the last little section here, because those are going to be leftover pieces. Almost there. Right, so these I don't need for this pattern. All I'm doing now is I'm putting these into my bundle over here of my leftover fabrics. Okay, I just need my tiny little piece of grey, but I can't seem to find it. So I'm grabbing another piece of grey over here to be able to put into my stitching section. And now I've got everything I need to make this quilt. Now, without babbling into the internet more and more and more, what I do is I can make this whole quilt in 4 hours. From what we've just done to finished in 4 hours. So it is possible. That's not being interrupted. That's not having kids, husbands, children. Oh, poop. Sorry. Hang on. Bear with. This whole walking around your studio thing when you're filming is really not working very well for me. Sorry, girls and boys. And I'm hopefully not making anybody ill. I'm not sponsored by Coca-Cola. Oh, God, they look good. Look at that. Oh, they're like giant earrings for a big drag queen. Right. Now, let's see if I can get this to rise. Are you going to rise? Come on. Stay still. Is this going to work? Is it? Oh, I think it is. Now, that mess, you pay extra for that. Oh, I love it. Right, so first things first, I know, now bring in mind, I've made this pattern a lot. I wrote the pattern, so I jump around on it, so you don't have to. I always make the cornerstones first because it is so easy. You've got 4 little colours here. One is, now come on, work with me. This is, what colour? Come on, come on. I will test, I'm testing. Bright yellow. This is yellow. What you're doing is you're taking your bright yellow and your yellow and you're putting those together. Hang on. Like that, on the short end there. And you're sewing these together. And you're doing it identically for all the right way around. Hang on, let me check I've got these the right way around, and I do. Okay, now, the tip is, what I'm looking at, in the pattern over there, you can see that my bright yellow is on this side, and my yellow is on this side. So that when I sew these, my bright yellow and my yellow are the same way. So when I get it like this, I'm putting them with a flat edge through the machine first and that fabric on the top. And your 1/4 inch seam here is vital. So what you're making sure is that you do exactly the same thing for all your needle and thread on a live feed after you have so carefully gone and made sure that your machine was all prepped and ready. Would that happen? No, I don't believe that at all. I love you, my Bertha. I name all of my machines. This is Bertha. Bertha is the queen of a nation. I don't know what nation, but she is my little queen of a nation. Thank you, Bertha. And now remember, they've got this bit going in first, which is that flat end. And then you put that on the top, line it up nicely. So when I say line it up nicely, you can't see any of either fabric from the outside. They need to be direct. So there, there, you see that little turquoisey bit? That's not nicely. That's wonky. So there we go. Line that up. And off we go. Now, I always start with this because I am like a kid in a candy store. I just like instant. And this way then, we've actually made 4 little blocks. And I love that. I think that's just so nice that you've got 4 little blocks already made. And you're done. So with these, I always like to press my seams open. I do find as a long arm quilter, you end up with a much better finish when you're quilting. That's, of course, if you have a quilting machine that actually works. But all I do then is, I'm hoping you'll be able to see that from now, and I've just realized I've unplugged my iron, so in back she goes. All I do with that, and I'm hoping you can see from that distance, sorry, I don't have technical things. I rest my fabric on there first. I then take this, I open the fabric like that. I think you can see that. I'm hoping, if not, I'll move my camera in a moment. And all you do is you just run your finger down the seam, down the spine of the seam, and you press your seam open like that. You just run your finger down there as you go. I find that works easier for me because then when I put this triangle on top, oh, that never happens. Oh my God, I am so delighted. That is exact. That is exact. That is what you're looking for, okay? Oh my goodness, I've never had that happen. Woo! Normally when people do live feeds, they'll be like, yeah, that's perfect. You don't have to see it. But that is exactly what you want, okay? And then again, I'm going to press this open. And by doing that, what you do is you run your finger along here. Now, don't stretch it, okay? I'm just squeezing, squeezing, squeezing. But you don't, I'd prefer you didn't squeeze it that way. But you guide your iron's nose along the way. And then when you're there, you just push down. That's it. You're not doing any more. You're just pressing down. And voila. You want 4 of them. 4 of them, please. Sorry, I got my back to you. It's very boring, I'm sorry. And again, these are exactly the same. Oh my goodness, this is brilliant. Now you'll see tomorrow, I don't normally bring Bertha to Natasha, A, because she's very noisy, but B, because I'm definitely bringing her, because what's really, really important when you're doing half square triangles and you're doing a quilt like this is by using the same machine, the same foot, the same everything, means that everything will line up correctly. Now, this will be slightly different, I think, because this machine is really heavy. It's about 15, 20 kilos. It's a real job to get it around. So we'll see. We may end up with Bertha, we might not. I will keep you posted. It's only because every single machine is slightly different. And by having the right machine in the right place just makes your life a little bit easier. Right. 1 more pressed. 2 more pressed. And 3 more pressed. And there we go. We now have your 4 cornerstone blocks ready to go. Okay. Now, many of you have not seen how I stitch this onto the machine. So the first thing I do is I take the pattern and I put this on my machine like this. Now, there are many ways you can do this. All of them are correct. You do not have to do it the way that I'm doing it. Do it how best that works for you. All I would say is just make sure that you have nice flat pieces of fabric. You can see that's got a big press in the middle. I'm just going to cut that. I'm going to press that. And you don't need a big piece. I would say maybe an inch, inch and a half. You're just looking to be able to identify what color is what color. This is the umber. And then bright yellow. Remember we said that this was bright yellow. That's going to be my bright yellow. Now this bright yellow might actually be a bit thick. So I'm going to just trim this down a little bit. There we go, that's my bright yellow. And then the yellow yellow This was my yellow, remember? So we put the yellow there. And then last but not least, this one. Ooh. This is my orange. Now, K fabric is quite hard to actually put onto these. So you'll see what I've done. Let me stitch this on for you. So you can see now I've lined all the fabric up. All the fabric is lined up next to the names. And all I'm doing now is just very slowly, oops. There we go. Okay, so I've gone one way, and then I do a reverse stitch, and then I do another one. The reason I do that is I find it stitches a lot better on. And what's also quite good is by stitching it on, you can check again if you're happy with the thread color, if the thread color works. Because personally, I do find by checking the thread color there, it just adds that extra dimension of what you're doing there. So there we go. We are now ready to go. We have created our cornerstones. We have got our 16 squares. We've got our squares. We've got our cornerstones. And we've got our border. All right. Ready to go. Now all we've got left to do is our half square triangles. Now in your pattern, you will see that your half square triangles are numbered. Many of you have not made binding before. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you how I'm doing the binding. I'm going to take you for a little walk. Sorry to... Am I there? Oh, yes, I'm counting again. I'm so sorry. I tried to move the camera and then press the wrong button. Sorry. So what I just want to show you here on binding, which I'm hoping I cleverly hid from everybody. So what I've done is I've got a white piece of the light, the pink, then it goes, and you can see the pink and the purple just match up perfectly there. And then I've got the dark purple over here, and I've got the pink. And you can see it just goes all the way around. So I've got 2 dark purples. I've just realized I've done this wrong. I need 5.5, not 5. So I've got 2 dark purples. But what I did was on the white one on the edge here, this is the one where I knew I was going to be making my join. So I started and ended with this one. And you'll see I added sort of a 6-inch section over here. And you can see there's a join. That was hopefully going to be the join at the end of the fabric. But you'll see I didn't cut quite enough. So this is why I'm glad I checked this, because I've just realized I have to actually go and cut a second piece of the binding to be able to make this work. So I'm going to use this. Bum, 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 bum. This is why we check. 5.5 of these you need for it. Sorry, not 4.5, 5.5. So I'm just cutting another 2.5-inch strip off this. Luckily, there is so much fabric in this kit, you've got more than enough to play with that. Okay. So I've just cut myself another 2.5-inch piece here. I'm going to have my start and end be in that deep dark purple. So that will be fine. So I've got 2 of these, which are quite bright. So you can make it work. You can decide now how you're going to do it. So your starting color is umber. And then you've got your orange. And then you've got your yellow. And then you've got your bright yellow. Then I'm going to do an umber. And then I'm going to do this. So my ending piece is going to be this. So when I do my joining of the thing together, I'm going to just switch orders. So I'm going to have my orange, umber, yellow, bright yellow, umber, orange. So that's going to be the order that I put them on for my binding, because I know that I'm going to join this piece at the end of the binding. So when you do your binding, you've cut these out at 2.5 inches. Then what you do is you take your fabric, right sides together. You've got 2 fabrics there. Okay, you're going to take them right sides together. this one's your start fabric, okay? You've got your two fabrics together. And the reason I say it's the start fabric is that I always throw it that way behind the machine so that I'm not stitching onto the end. So what you're looking to do is you're going to put a little bit overlap there and a little bit of overlap there, but you're sewing from there to there. Now, I have done hundreds and hundreds of different bindings, so I feel quite comfortable doing this without a fold. So what you can do is you can just fold along there and you just press a line so that you make sure that that line goes from the join there to the join there. That might not make any sense to you, so let me stitch it and you can see. So over here, you can see I've just sewn from that end to that end there. Now I'm slightly out there. I'm not bothered. If you're bothered, unpick it, do it again. If you're not bothered, no one is going to see it. And I promise you it will be hidden in the binding. And then what I do is I trim this little section off here, normally not with the smallest scissors in the entire world. Thank you very much, Groves and Banks, for the wonderful scissors. And what I do is I do that, and then I just press this open. I love pressing my binding open with my fingers first, and then I go over and use an iron in a few seconds. I'll show you how to do that in a bit. So press that open. So we've done our first piece of binding, okay? Next, I know that the umber, after the umber comes the yellow. So this is my yellow. So I'm now putting right side of the yellow to right side of the umber, and I'm sewing from there to there in a straight line. Okay, so I've done it again, exactly the same thing. Trim off the excess. You're looking for ideally as close to 1/4 of an inch as you can get. And boom. Now, I don't throw these away. I'm an FPP person and I like making miniatures, so I never throw these away. Okay, so there we go. You've got your join at the back. I just literally use my finger to press these open. You can do it in the fabric, or you can just press it on the table, whatever's easiest for you, or you can use the iron, or you don't have to do it at all. There is no problem with either. Okay, so after this one, I know I've got my bright yellow. My bright yellow color is this one. Now, you don't have to do them in this order. That's just what I've chosen to do. There's no right or wrong. You don't even have to use this fabric for your binding. You can just have a lovely little bit of extra left in your stash. And then I'm back to the umber because I wanted everything to join on the orange. And you saw that when I showed you on the quilt how that all works. I'm going to take a moment after this to read messages in case I have missed anything. Probably like we haven't seen you for the last 10 minutes. What are you doing? Right. So again, I'm now just trimming my little edges off because normally I don't do them per piece. I just do them afterwards. And bum, 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 bum. You've got to do a song. I don't know what that song was, but having a song always helps. Making funny noises is always encouraged as well. Little dance always makes things go faster. Strange noises outside my studio. Don't know who that is. Luckily, the door is locked. Right. So there we go. We're now ready. So all I do now to make binding, I know many of you have made it and some of you haven't. All you do now, random little bits of cotton, is as follows. Bear with, caller. Bear with. So you take your fabric and you put it in half and you then just press it. Love these fabrics. Sorry if you said been sewing myself. Oh, that's lovely. What fabric is it? It's called Guinea Flower, Kirsty. Guinea Flower. It's really a lovely fabric by K Facet. If you look on natashamakes.com and go from there. I got my pattern, love the design, so much fabric. Oh, good, that's good. Sue, use your stash, that's always a good thing. Sue, I use Glide for quilting and Oracle for piecing. Sue, it's as if you know what the surprise is. I'm not saying anymore. Sylvia Stratford is saying, I love the colours. Sylvia's not going to be able to stay with us for much longer. Nettie, what iron do you have? I've burnt out 2 primms so far this year. Oh my goodness. So yeah, this is the one I use. It's the Auto Steam 2600W. I prefer the Ultra one because the Ultra one actually turns off on its own. So that's what works best for me. Penny! Hello, Penny. Sorry if anybody's messaged and I haven't answered. Sorry. Jan Hill, I love that quilt over your left shoulder. The with the 3-strip rectangle stars and writing. I will tell you the story of that. It was actually really sad. Let me start this. So when I opened my studio, one of my lovely, lovely, lovely quilting friends was called Betty Swindley. So she said, I never met a quilter I didn't like. And when I opened this shop, she made this in 2003. When I opened my shop, this hung over there, hanging down. Betty passed away about 10 days ago. So when I'd done the move, when we had the renovation, I'd taken the quilt off the wall because I didn't want it to get damaged. And then Betty very sadly passed away. She never got to see the shop finished, which was very sad. But yeah, she was a lovely, lovely, lovely woman. So I miss her terribly. It was very sad. So yep, now I'm just doing the binding. Now you see, you don't have to do the binding now, but I like doing binding. I like it, and I'm trying to find a way of showing you how I'm doing this. Let's try that. There we go. So, forgive the dirty ironing board. So again, this is where if I haven't pressed my seams open at this point, before I actually start to press it, I just put my finger in the middle. Sorry. Right. So what I do is I put my finger in the middle there, put the nose of my iron on the edge, and I just press that open. And then in half, and you press it down. And I find the ironing board, I normally go the full length of the ironing board to get this done because it's quicker. And you then are using the ironing board to actually then turn the fabric back in on yourself. And again, these two I didn't press open yet. So I just use my finger to press that open. And there we go. I do find making that binding at the very beginning of the project makes me happy because then I just know that every aspect of this is done and ready to go. So when I have quilted it and I have got everything ready, it's just so much easier. And I just then pull the binding out the bag and it's done. Other people don't like that, but there we go. That's what works for me. All you're looking to do is line up raw edge to raw edge of your binding and just press it down. If you have gone a bit awry, like over here, I was ever so slightly out, just put the iron over the seam you've just pressed and then line it up better and then come back and press it then. There we go. So I've made a little bit of an issue there. and we can go from there. I don't know why my iron is steaming. It's not meant to. I miss my iron. Okay, and then I'm going to show you a very quick trick as well, because having used your ironing board, there is a very good trick to be able to make the binding a lot easier to wrap, because a lot of us just pick the binding up, throw it in a bag, it gets crumpled, you've got to repress it afterwards, the threads start coming out. So I found a really easy trick to be able to keep your binding together. Right, we've now pressed the final little piece there. Sorry, my little board is... So I've now pressed the final little piece there. So what I do now, always have the fold at the bottom. And what you do is you just put 2 fingers in and you start winding. And you just start winding. And by doing it this way, it doesn't get twisted. Now, at this point, you'll see it's getting a little bit loose there. So all you do is you put your fingers in the middle and you just give it a bit of a tug. Okay, do the tug while you're on the ironing board, and you can see it then just pulls a little bit tighter, and everything's then a lot neater when you're doing it. And I pull this up with my right hand ever so gently, and then with the left hand, I wind it round. So normally every full piece of thread, each full piece of fabric, now you can see as I've wound that, I've got a big lumpy bit there. So all I do is I keep my fingers in there and I pull this with that. And you can see by doing that, that's gone back and I've taken up that slack. It just keeps your binding a little bit tighter together. It just feels a lot better. And as you're doing more and more of it, it's actually pulling together tighter. So you have to pull it less and less. So I've just done it 2.5, and you can see that that is nowhere near as bulky as it was before. So as I pull that down, it's a lot less than it was. And then you just keep winding it as you go. So I know that I've done 6 in total. This is my 5th one that I'm on at the minute. And you just keep winding it round. Oops. Now, if you have got a section there that's a little bit higher, just unravel it, push it back down, and boom, you're done. One set of... God, doesn't that look delicious already? So there we go. One thing of binding ready to go. And now all we have left is the half square triangles. There we go. I think I just saw a message on there. Forgive me while I just double check. Forgot they had meat in the oven, all dried out now. Oh, Francis, I'm so sorry. What are you going to have for your dinner? Oh, brilliant. Put some red wine on it. Don't. That's so sad. I'm glad I mentioned it for her. Her memory has been shared. You've lost a lot of people, lovely people in your life just recently. It has been a very tough year, Jan. And I won't deny, I think my stress and strain of late has not been helped by the loss of my friends. Because obviously, you know, when you're having a bad day, you can phone your bestie and just go, oh my God, you won't believe what... You know, you can just have a moan, what I call a good old-fashioned whine moan. Bitch and complain, really. But yeah, when they pass away, it's incredibly hard to be able to have that... It's not that I don't have support, but you know what I mean. When you've got those core people, it's been a lot. It's been a lot. Anyway, back to this. I've been boring you enough for this. So, our background squares, we've got too many of them. That's okay. These ones. So, now we've got all of our fabric ready to go. So I'm going to test you now to check you're paying attention. Sorry, I'm coming. What colour's that? Yellow. This is yellow. Well done. And then what colour is this one? Hang on. Pulling them up. I love it. You've all stopped listening now. I know you have. Orange. There you go. I knew you'd have it. Orange. So that's yellow. That's orange. And then the dark one is umber. Umber. Don't know if that's the right colour or not, but we're calling it umber. So we go, oh, come on. If I was better at this, I'd be able to pick these all up in one go. So we've got umber, we've got orange, we've got yellow, and we've got bright yellow. So I find at this point it is a lot easier to line these up. I'm going to hide the little bag of crisps like that. So I know that, oh no, I've got this wrong way around now. You see it, you've got to check. So I've got umber, orange, yellow, bright yellow, background. I find this a lot easier because by having this, I then go and I know that the first one I'm making is I'm going to make 8 umber and background. So there's 2, 4, 6, 8. So I know I've got 8 of those and then I need 8 of these. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8. Right. That's my first bundle I have to make. Hello, John. So sorry I'm late. But grandbaby, oh my God, it's quite busy. Love the fabric selection. Thank you, Wendy. So that's my first one. That's going to be your figure 1.1, okay? The next one in the pattern is you're going to take 8 background colors. 2, 4, 6, 8. And then you're going to do 8 bright yellow. So 2, 4, and it's 4 because I've cut 2 together. 6, 8. So this is now going to be figure 1.2. Okay? And I line them up in a pile here. So I know that's 1, that's 2. Okay? And then for number 1.3, I've got, oh, no, you see, this is why you double check. This is actually my, I'm supposed to be doing bright yellow, not yellow. This is 6.3 because this is yellow. This is why I always lay it out first to double check. 2, 4, 6, 8. First one is bright yellow, not yellow. I know, whoever wrote this pattern should think ahead. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 2, 4, 6, 8. Right. But that's why I always lay them out to check. So 1.2 is bright yellow and background fabric. 1.3 is yellow and background fabric. And then 1.4 is, guess what? Orange and background fabric. So I need 8 of those and I need 8 of these. 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay. So I've got 6.1. Give me. I've got 6.1, 6.2, 6.3, 6.4. Umber, bright yellow, yellow, orange. So whether you get those in the wrong order or not is irrelevant. You need to do 8 of each one of those, okay? So those are the first ones that you're going to do. And I'm doing them like that because then I know that's my first pile. Okay, so that's numbers 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and 1.4. Now comes the tricky bit. We're going to take 1 orange and 1 umber. Okay, so I need 6 blocks of these. So I'm going to take 6 orange and I'm going to take 6 umber, 2, 4, 6 umber, and those 2 are going to make number 1.5. Now, just for ease and to make sure I don't get confused, if I'm doing this in a while, I put a pin through here with a piece of paper that says 1.5. It just makes things a little bit easier, but because I've done it a few times, I'm just going to put 1.5 at the bottom at an angle to the one before. So I know that that's 1.5. That's 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, and now 1.5. Okay, so that's 1.5 over there. Now 1.6, I've got to take 1 yellow triangle to 1 bright yellow. So 1 yellow triangle to 1 bright yellow, and I need to make 6 of these. So I've got 2, 4, 6, 2, 4, 6. So this is going to be number 1.6, and I'm going to make those into number 1.6. So I've now put those on top of my pile, opposite direction to that. So that's number 1.5. This is now number 1.6. Now, the reason I lay this out as well is because if you've cut something wrong or you've forgotten to cut something, this is when you're going to pick it up. So now you take 1 bright yellow. Now I'm making 2 of these. So you take 2 bright yellow and you're going to sew them to 2 umber. Okay? So I've got to make 2 of those. So this is what your half square triangle is going to look like. Okay? You're going to make 2 of those. So that's 1.7. I'm putting that directly opposite there. Okay? 1.8, I've got to take a yellow triangle to an orange triangle, and I'm making 2. Okay? And there we go. I'm not quite sure why I've got so many of these left over. So I've got 8 of these left over, which I think was when I was cutting my scrap pieces. I can't remember. But because I've got 8 of those, that seems like quite a lot. I shouldn't have 8. So what I'll do is I just leave those there. But because I've got bits left over, I'm just going to go through and triple check my pattern, because if you've got things left over, you shouldn't have anything left over. So I'm just double checking. So 6.1, number one, I'm going to be doing a background triangle, and I'm doing it with umber, and I'm making 8. So there's 2, 4, 6, 8. That's number 6.1. 6.2 is a bright yellow with a background fabric, and I'm making 8 of these. So I need 2, 4, 6, 8, and then I need 8 of these, 2, 4, 6, 8. So that's 6.2. 6.3, I need a background triangle there. I need 8 of those, 2, 4, 6, 8. And then I need a bright, I need a yellow. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8. So that's 6.3. 6.4 is going to be orange and background. So I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 2, 4, 6, 8. So that's my orange. That's 6.4. So that's fine. And then 1 orange to 1 umber. So I've got, and I need to make 6 of them. 2, 4, 6, 2, 4, 6. That's my orange to umber. I'm making 6 of those. And then I'm taking my yellow, which is this one. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. So I'm yellow to bright yellow. I'm making 6 of those as well. So that is number 1.6. And then I'm sewing 1 bright yellow to 1 umber. I'm making 2 of those, so that's 1.7. And then 1.8, I'm sewing a yellow onto an orange, and I'm making 2 of those. So I have done it correctly. I just ended up having a little bit left over. So now the boring, fun/boring task. I'm not sponsored by Coca-Cola, but I would be. These are left over as well. So all I'm doing now, my leftover pieces, I'm putting in one side. Now I know that I've just got to chain piece all of these as you go. I'm not sure if I can zoom in on this. Let's see. Oh my God, I can! Ooh! Right, so I have to make 2 of these. And what you do is you put them right sides together. Now, this is on the bias, okay? I wonder if I can do it. I don't know if I can do it. Right, so there we go. This is on the bias all the way along here. Don't stretch it. Don't pull it. Don't do anything. There we go. So you're lining this bit up. You're lining this seam up, this seam up. And in theory, they are all exactly the same size. If they're not, well, that's a bit of a fudge, and we'll figure that out later. Okay. So what you do, I'm lucky enough, I've got a needle down position on my machine, so I just press the needle down. And all you do is you just hold the fabric. You're not pushing it, you're just guiding it ever so slightly, and you let the fabric go all the way through. Okay, now I do these in reverse, only because I think it's easier. I've got them all in reverse then. And you just stitch down these 1/4 inch lines all the way along. Now, I apologize. I have a very noisy machine. I do apologize. Nothing I can do about it. Bertha is a very vocal girl and we love her to bits. So apologies for the noise. So at this point, I'm happy for you to mute me. If not, you're just going to have the Bertha purr. Right, so we're now on to, so that's numbers one. Oh, hang on, I've got to check this. So that's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So that's numbers 1.8 and 1.7 done. I'm now doing 1.6, and 1.6 was my yellow and bright yellow. And just as a reminder, you're lining up this side and this side as accurately and as closely as you can. And if you've cut everything correctly, your bottom line will be exact. If it's not, I would say to you, line these up completely. The one that's the largest one, line your 1/4 inch up with the largest error over here. And as long as you're not more than 1 or 2 threads away, you will be fine. So this is now 1.6 going through the machine. We're doing it backwards. And there is no right or wrong way of doing it. You've got to sew them all together anyway. And if anybody's asking, oh my God, how much longer does this go on for? You've probably got about another hour to doing half the block. Doing half the quilt before tomorrow's show. So there's probably another hour to go, which is probably where everybody's going to go, oh God, I don't have time for that. Goodbye. Thank you very much for everybody who's watched so far. I just realized my battery may run out, so I better charge you up. Forgive my hand. There we go. Right. And now we're at 1.5, which is your umber and your orange. Of 1.5, we're doing 6 of those together. I do love my Bertha purr. She really does go. Now, of all the blocks I've got here, obviously this will make the entire quilt. I think there are 64 blocks in total. You're only going to need 32 to make half. So I will be making half the quilt tonight, and then the other half on the show tomorrow. So a bit of a spoiler for everybody who's watching tonight, but you get the behind the scenes and how I prep everything and doing it nicely with me in the studio. Everything that I'm doing now is for sale on natashamakes.com. I'm appearing on her show tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. And that will be me making the other half of this quilt. All the patterns are available on her website for £7.99 for a digital download or a paper one. I will say Natasha does spend quite a bit of money on her paper printing, so if you do get a paper printed one, they're very good quality. I don't know what the postage charges are, but her website will show you all of that. I told you, the birth of purr, you've got to stop it. But from start to finish, making this quilt without doing it as a live feed, I have done it before, cutting everything in 3.5 hours. So, yeah, you can do it. It is a really... Once you've read the pattern, you've got your head around it. It's a really simple quilt to make, really easy. You've just got to get your head around the half square triangles, the cutting, and it just takes that little bit of time. But it is lovely. So that's number 1.4 done. We're now doing the number 1.3, which is our yellow to our background fabric. At this point, I would strongly advise you to double check that your bobbin hasn't run out. There is nothing worse in this world than stitching and stitching and not having any bobbin. That is a little bit frustrating in the extreme. And we are now finished number 1.3. We are starting number 1.2. And then comes the fun task of pressing all of these open. That's always a festive process, but it's got to be done. And you will find it a lot easier if you do press your seams open. Well, I find it a lot easier. You may not. There is no right or wrong. Do what makes you feel happy. That's all that matters. And the only reason I am stitching all of these together is because I'm not going to press all of them. I am pressing them all open though, because, sorry, I am sewing them all because no one wants to sit and watch me sew these on Bertha, on Natasha Makes tomorrow. It is just not. Nope, it's just not an option. It would just be silly. We're almost finished number 1.2. Only 10 more seams to go. But you see what I mean? And I know... Oh, Bertha, what was that? What was that? Come on, talk to me. Okay. Bertha had a moment, sorry. And you can, even though I have got a super duper fast machine, you can tell that this is actually a really quick project. Oh, Bertha's stitching beautifully today. I think she likes all of you being here. Just checking if there are any messages. Thank you for your tips and explanation. Oh, you're welcome. Amanda, why aren't you on Facebook anymore? Only 4 more to go. And we are done. Now, remember I said I'm only doing half of this project. So I know that there are 8 on this. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 for later, 4 for now. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, oh. 1, 2, 3, 4 for later. And 4 for now. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 for later. 1, 2, 3, 4 for now. 1, 2, 3. This is number 1.5. There are only 6 of them, so 3 for later. And 3 for now. But I'm wrong. This is number 4.4. 1.4, so there are actually 8. So 4 for later, 4 for now. Sorry. Now we're on 1.5. There's 1, 2, 3 for later. And 3 for now. 1, 2, 3 for now. And then 1.6, I know there are 6, so we've got 1, 2, 3 for later. 1, 2, 3 for now. And then these last 2, there are only 2 of each colour, so 1 for later, 1 for now, 1 for later, and 1 for now. So at this point, I'm going to take all of these over to the ironing board. And, oh, I wonder if I can, there we go. I wonder if I can do that. That might be a little I'll save you from the treachery of having to walk around with me. Now, because I know these are extra bundles of scrap that I'm not using, that are left over, I am now going to put those in my scrappy bundle and we'll be ready to go. If your iron does fall asleep, now's the time to wake her up. I always set my seam and then I press my seams open. You may not choose to. That is your choice entirely. There is no right or wrong, whatever works for you. It does take longer pressing your seams open. I personally think you get a better finish, which is why I do it on mine, but you do what works best for you. There is no judgment. There's nothing worse than some idiot on the internet doesn't know anything about you telling you how to do things. So I'm telling you, do what you like. All I will say is that if you have got an iron that uses steam, try not to turn the steam on at this point. You will burn your finger. Ask me how I know. And now my iron has decided to spit steam out at me. All I will say is I miss my iron. And take your time doing this, because the flatter your blocks, the easier it is to sew, the easier they are to line back up again. Honestly, just take your time. There's no rush. It's not as if you're doing a live feed on YouTube or anything for people to be bored stiff watching you press your seams open. You've ruined one person's dinner because the meat was overcooked now. Don't like the steam, go away. How do I turn it off? It's like a very angry dragon. Go off. I don't want steam. Go away, I don't want it. It's so annoying because with this iron, if you don't have it hot enough, it doesn't get hot enough to press your seams. And if you get it to a set temperature, the steam comes out automatically. And the little switch that is allegedly turning the steam on and off doesn't bloody work. Sorry. I'm a moaner. But I promise you, I do find it works a lot better having the seams open. And just taking your time, it just gets there. And even if your iron is spitting out steam, it's quite nice to have a little bit of a steamy facial there. I don't know if it's good for your pores or not, but there we go. I'm going to imagine that it is, even though it probably isn't, and I'm probably clogging everything on my face. Not sure how many more to go, but we're almost there. We've now finished with the 1.4, so we're on to the 1.6s. So I think I've got 6 more to go. 3, 6. I think I've got 8 left to go. 7. Come on. Almost there. I think it's 4 left. At this point, you're bored. A little bit of dance helps your feet. Get your wobbly bits moving. I've got a lot more wobbly bits than most. The other thing about pressing your seam open at this point is if you are not quite 100% square when you're laying your triangles together, that's absolutely fine. But the good thing is at this point you will actually know what's gone wrong and you'll be able to figure that out. And you'll be able to see as you're stitching. So that way then you can actually try and fix that before you actually start sewing the whole piece together. Now on this one, exactly that has happened. I'm sure you all saw me have a bit of a moment where I thought Bertha was having a problem. She hasn't actually stitched this beginning bit there. So that's why I find always pressing the seam open does mean that you pay a little bit more attention to your seam because she hadn't actually stitched that beginning section. So when you come to put the quilt together, you've then got a giant hole in your quilt, which no one wants. Yeah, there you go. Well done. Right, so half the quilt is pressed. Now, the other top tip I have is, let me make that wider, put these back in the order that they were. So put all your 1.1s in one pile, 1.2, 3, 4, 5, up to 8, because when the pattern says calls for you to pull 1.1 or 1.2, it's just easier if they're already lined out that way. I feel like I need to sneeze. Why is it not going? Oh, I'm pushing the electrical cable. That won't be good. You ever get that moment where you've got to sneeze? Can't figure out why? Now, if you are going to lay these out in the 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.5, 6, 7, 8, do double check you've got them correct. It is very easy to move fabrics around. Just go through and double check. So my 1.1 is grey and umber. My 1.2 is bright yellow and grey. 1.3 is yellow and umber. Oh, sorry, yellow and grey. I've called it grey, the background colour. I'm calling grey, that's in the pattern. And then my orange and grey is ready for this. So then the next one is orange and umber. And then the next one is yellow and bright yellow. And then the next one is bright yellow and umber. And then the next one is yellow and orange. And I am ready to go. So first line is 4 squares. So I know I need 4 squares, and I know I'm going to sew these two together. So first things first, I'm going to sew 2 squares and 2 squares together. Right, and at this point I am going to press my seams open as I go along. It's just easier. Again, you can press to one side. You don't have to press them to one side or open. You can do whatever you will like. I just prefer open. That's my preference. Right, so I know that my quilt starts with one of these. And then I am going to just grab, where is my... It's not as if I've done this pattern multiple times that I could have forgotten. But what I find helps as well is having a picture of the actual pattern. So maybe take your quilt apart at this point. It just makes it easier having the actual image as well of what you're doing. Actually, I'm going to do that the other way around. Right. So first things first, I've got my 2 squares sewn together. Now the first thing I am putting on is a number 1.1. And it's really important to get the direction right. So those two are going that way. I need that to go like that. Okay, so that's my first one on. Trust me, I've done it many a time where I've sewn these on the wrong way round. So just take your time and check it's the right way round. Okay, I do find it easier to press my seams open as I go. You can do them all at one time, whatever works. Okay, so that's number 1.1. Next I have a figure 1.2 and 1.2. So I need the bright yellow. That's my bright yellow. And I need that to go in the right way. So I know I've got that. Perfect. Now, when you come to sew these up, do your usual. You're lining this side up, you're lining that side up, and you're lining this side up. But do an extra check. Take that, curl that back, and check that the line here, from this one, this join here, all the way up to there, meets so that it's in a line. So by that I mean, if you fold it back and it's like that, you're not going to get your point. So if you line these up so that they meet like that, that they go in a line, you will then, in theory, you should be able to hit that point perfectly. And I'll show you now. What could possibly go wrong? That's what you're looking for. See how that meets perfectly there? That's what you're looking for. Alrighty, so no judgment if you got it wrong. Well done if you got it right. So now you've done half of row 1. Okay, so that's half of row 1. And now we're going to do row 2. So row 2 is a yellow. So you've got a yellow one. This one is yellow, okay? And the yellow one meets it like that. So you're joining that up. Exactly the same thing. You're lining it up over there, over there, over there. But when you fold this back, you make sure that that line works. Alrighty? Okay, so that's your yellow. And now we're on to the orange. And the orange again, you've got that grey flying geese in the middle. I know I'm doing this really well, aren't I? Such a great teacher. So there you go. So you can see you've got that big grey flying geese. You've got another grey flying geese over there with the orange. So exactly the same. Line up this side, this side, this side. And then your fourth check is the little line down the half square triangle line. Now, if I'm making the whole quilt at once, I'd make 2 of these. Because the quilt is, in fact, a mirror image of each other. But obviously, I'm going to do the other half on Natasha Makes tomorrow at 10 a.m. And row 1. Row 1. Okay? Now, I press my seams open, so I've missed a few there that I'm pressing open. I'm just going to catch those last 2 and press those, the last 3 and catch those open. And if you're making the quilt yourself, at this point, you will be able to make the second piece identical to the first. Right, so that is number 1 done. Now we're doing number 2. So for number 2, I know I need 2 squares. I also need a number 1.2. I need a 1.3. I need 2 1.5s, which are these ones. I need 1 1.7, and I need 1 1.8. Okay, so these are all I'm going to need to make the block together. So I know that the first thing is my square, and then I've got an orange and a yellow. So the orange and yellow is going to be number 1.8. That's my 1.8. But I've got to make sure that my orange is going that way, with the orange going that way, and my square is over there. Okay, so this is my orange at the top here. So I need to make sure that I get that the right way round. Ask me how I know. Right, so that was the orange and the yellow. So then I need my orange and umber. Orange and umber, which is this one, my orange and umber. And what's going to happen is, this was the row in the first row, and what will happen is, that'll be the second. So my orange, my umber's on the top, and that will be my third piece on, but my second half square triangle. Okay, then next I've got a bright yellow and background, which is my number 1.2, I think it was, 1.2. That's my next one. And that is going to join my umber like that. Okay. This is almost as if I've got the pattern in front of me and I'm checking it as I go. Who would have thought of such genius? Not me. And what I mean by that is you can see I've got my pattern there and I've torn the front off the pattern there and I put the words here so that I can then be able to refer to both of them as I go along. It'll make your life a lot easier having something so simple to do that with. Next, we've got the yellow, which is this one. And then the yellow is going to go like this. So we've got a little grey flying goose in the middle there. Again, check this side, and this side. Fold this back to check you've got that line. Press that down nice and firm. And you feed it into your machine here. Just let the feed dogs do the work for you. That's why you pay all that money for your machines. Okay, and next we have our orange and our umber. Another orange and umber one over here with the orange at the top. So the orange is going there, and the orange is joining onto the to the yellow over there. So we're doing that. And then we have our umber and our bright yellow. And our umber is joining like that again. This one's nice and easy because there are no lines to meet up. You just line up your outer edges and there are no half square triangle lines to line up in the middle. And then last but not least, you've got your you've got your square at the end to line up. Anybody making this pattern, and if you want to square your half square triangles up, you're squaring them to the same size as your squares. Right, and now we're at the point now where we're going to put these together. So I'm going to press these seams open, and then we can put the first 2 rows together. Again, at this point, if I had been making the whole quilt in one go, I would make 2 of these so that as I went along, I had 2 of them to just put together at the same time. It would just be easier. It does take a lot longer pressing your seams open. For myself, I just prefer doing that. You don't have to, whatever works for you. But it does mean my live feed is a little longer than it normally would have been. Thank you very much for your patience. And thank you for sticking with me for so long. It's been lovely sharing my evening with you all. And now we're at the point where I'm ready to put 2 pieces together, the 2 long strips together. It is very, very important that you check you get these the right way round. Ask me how I know. So we then make sure that we put these together and check that we've got them going in the same direction and everything is right, and I can see that I have. If you do decide to press these one way or the other, I would say that if you're pressing these to the left, I would press the other ones to the right. That way your seams would nestle together and it will be a lot easier for you to line up as well. By pressing the seams open, I've got visibility of where the triangles are actually intersecting. So my hope is that I'm able to hit that point as well, leaving my points open. If you don't, it doesn't matter. Anybody getting close enough to your quilt to criticize your points? If they do, well, I would ask who asked for their opinion. And I have to say, after the second row, after this row is put together, you are actually able to see the majestic way that these amazing, amazing fabrics come together. I know when I did the batik one, I literally at this point exploded with glee because I just couldn't believe how beautiful the batik one had been. But equally, I've felt that way about both the K-facet designs as well. Just gorgeous colorways. And there's no rush, just take your time here. And at this point, hopefully you haven't sewn it upside down and you're able to see your quilt coming together. Double check at this point, because normally this is when we realize there's a problem and you end up stitching the wrong thing together and you only notice at the end that something's gone the wrong way round. So make sure you check as you go. Next, we've got row number 3. You're going to need 3 figure ones. No, we're not. We're going to be doing that one. I would say that if you have got a highlighter or a pen, as you do these, tick them off as you go, because it is very easy to get confused. Rats. Just found an error in my pattern. That's always annoying. Right, 2 grey squares. We've done that. Next, we've got 3 figure ones. No, we don't. Right, so we're going to do one of them. We're doing 2 of them. Ah! Three figure there to 1 figure 2 to 2 figure 4s to 1 figure 5 and to right. So let's start. We've got to start off, we've got one of them, which is our bright yellow. Then we've got our bright yellow and our yellow. And that is going that way and that way. So those are our first 2 pieces together. And next we have 2 grey squares. Never mind, false alarm. I haven't made an error. Okay, I made a mistake. Right, so you've got your, that's the first one. This is your second. And then you're attaching one of these onto the edge there. You know when you read something and you think, oh my God, I've made an error? I haven't made an error. Sorry for the panic there, boys and girls. Next, we are going to be using another one of, bear with, another one of these. No, we're not. We're doing a yellow one, not a bright yellow one. I'm having a panic attack here. Sorry, boys and girls. Just need to stop and take stock. Right, so I'm doing that. And then we've got an orange one, and our orange is this one. And we're creating a V again in our background fabric, our cloud, which I've called grey in the pattern, just to confuse you all. Again, you're lining this side up, and this side, and then folding this back to check that you've got a nice little line there. Right, and then we've got another square to go on the corner there. And next we've got the bright yellow and the yellow, which is this one. We're putting that together. And we've got the bright yellow going that way along the square there. And then last but not least, we've got the yellow one and the grey going on there, which I think is number 1.3. And we now have this section ready to go. Again, I'm now pressing my seams open before I push this all together. If I was making the whole quilt in one go, this is where I would now make sure that I made 2 of these so that I could piece them together nice and easily. But the second half of the quilt will be made at 10 a.m. tomorrow on Natasha Makes. Almost there. Right, so I know that that is the top section of my 3rd row. And I know that that is the bottom section of my 2nd row. So that's going on there. I line that up. And as I line these up together, you're able to see where the fabric's meant to be joining, if it does or not. And from what I can see, this all does. We've only got 1 more to go, 9 more seams, and we are done. Sorry, I'm concentrating to make sure I get these as lined up as I can. 3 lines. Oh my gosh, this is gorgeous. Ooh, I think I have a new favorite. Look how beautiful that is. Oh. Right, so I'm not pressing my seams on that one yet. And now we are ready to do our 4th row. So the first thing we're going to need is 2 of the umbers. The first one goes like that, and the second one goes, oh, it helps if I don't put my arm in the way. First one goes like that, second one goes like that. So I'm going to join those together now. I do find it easier joining 2, doing the 3rd, doing the 4th. Some people do 2 or 3, 4 lots of 2. That works just as well. Right. Next I have the bright yellow. So my bright yellow is forming another flying geese with my fabric over here. So you can see I've got flying geese joining there. That was really cack-handed, I apologize. You'll see when I put it together, you'll see. Okay, and then over here, I've got my bright yellow joining on like that over there. Bright yellow and orange. And then over here, I've got my orange and my umber. Sorry, I've got my bright yellow and yellow here. Then I've got my orange and my umber. So I know that the orange goes in like that. So this is my yellow, this is my orange, and that is my umber. And I know that this is the most important seam in the entire quilt because this is the central star of your quilt. So if you're going to hit any point, this is the point to hit. It doesn't matter if you miss it, but as close as you can get would be brilliant. Okay, so we've got our umber over here. So that's our orange and our umber. And then I know that this one's going over here, but I'm creating another one of those diamonds. So you can see that's the angle that it's going on. So I'm going to stitch down the seam over here. Okay, and now I'm creating another grey background flying geese over here. So I'm joining down that grey section there. I call it grey because the pattern says grey. Obviously, it is what we call cloud. The fabric name for this is cloud. And then our very last piece ready to go over here is this one. And we're joining it again to make it look like a diamond. And that goes over there. Almost 2 hours. And you can see, even with the pressing, the next section's not going to take 2 hours. I'm going to now I'm going to press this very quickly. And then I'm not going to do the big reveal until I press all the seams ready to go. So you've got about another 10 minutes left of me. Thank you so much for all of you who've been able to stay the whole way. It's very, very kind of you. I know you've got much more important things to do, and I'm trying to get done before Strictly starts. I know I don't watch Strictly, but I know many of you do. Two more to go. Right. Oh. Right. And now to put this together. So I know the umber one is... Right, so the umber one goes on there. Just checking I've got this right. Yes. Have I? Yes. So all along here, you're now making sure if you can hit the points of where your triangles are, this is the time to do it. Just take your time. You've spent so long getting to this point. Just take your time. Try and hit them if you can. Just see how you go. Now, I'm going to tease you while I press this open, because I'm not going to show you until it's done. Only because I think it looks so amazing. Oh my God. Sorry, I looked. I think it looks amazing. I'm a happy bunny. Right. I know everybody hates the idea of pressing their seams open. That's why it's going to take so much longer. I apologize. Trust me, it'll be worth it when it's done. Oh my goodness, this looks so much better than I expected. But that's old Kay Fassett for you. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant man. Him, Brandon, and Philip, they make the most amazing team. They really do. I'm almost there. Sorry, I know this is very boring for you. Almost there. Come on. Almost there, sorry. So I'm going to put this outside so that it's easier for you to see them all. Well, actually, I'm going to put it here. Sorry about that, boys and girls. Zoom back out again. But I know this has taken ages. But look at that. Isn't that just amazing? So thank you very much for being with me this evening. I'm sorry to have taken up so much of your time, but you can see just how gorgeous these designs are. If I do say so myself, I think the fabrics make this absolutely delicious. And I am very, very proud of that one. So I will see you all tomorrow on Natasha Makes at 10 a.m. Look after yourselves. Sleep well. Thank you so much for being here. And yeah, any questions, let me know. Oh, I'm just going to double check the chat. Gorgeous. Well done, John. Are you still doing long arm quilting? Amanda, I am hoping to. My machine is having a bit of a moment. So it has to be repaired at the moment. So as soon as that's back up and running, I will let you know. All of you look after yourselves, and I'll catch up with you tomorrow at 10.